Hi everyone, you're welcome to Pro Design. In this video, I'll show you 7 ways to make your materials look more realistic in V-Ray for SketchUp. So without further ado, let us jump right into it. Ambient occlusion is a shading and rendering technique used in 3D visualization to add realism to a scene. It simulates the soft shadow that occurs in corners and crevices where less light is able to reach. Ambient occlusion offers a more natural appearance by mimicking the way light radiates in real-world environments. Now, how can ambient occlusion enhance realism? Number 1, depth perception. Ambient occlusion increases the perception of depth in 3D models by emphasizing the geometric details. Soft shadows. It produces soft non-directional shadows within or between objects, which are vital for achieving a realistic look. And lastly, materials benefit from ambient occlusion because the technique emphasizes their texture and the interplay of light and shadow on their surfaces. Now I have this thing and we want to add ambient occlusion to our render. Go to V-Ray Asset Editor. Under V-Ray Asset Editor, come to Settings. Then open the window towards the right to show the parameter. Then come to the global illumination. Just switch to Advanced Settings. Then once you get to Advanced Settings, scroll down. Then under the global illumination settings, you see ambient occlusion. By default it will be turned off. Just make sure you turn it on, and we want to change this radius to 3 and bring this occlusion amount to 2. The radius defines the spread of the shadow in between the edges, while the occlusion amount is how dark you want the shadow to be within the corner. Implementing ambient occlusion in 3D scenes is a powerful method to increase realism without significantly complicating the lighting setup, and can be crucial in architectural rendering. Fabric fall-off is a very interesting effect that brings the life out of fabric materials. Fabric materials are not just like any other materials. It is usually characterized with fall-off around the edges. When you view a fabric, when you view clothing material, you view cotton, you view silk, you view velvet, it has this fall-off effect around the edges, and it makes it look fabric indeed. In this scene, we have a chair, and we are going to see how fall-off can impact the realism of our fabric material. Let's get into it. Let's open our V-Ray Asset Editor and let's use our pick tool to pick the color. I've applied a fabric yellow texture to this chair, which I downloaded from Chaos Cosmos browser. You can download your materials, your fabrics from Chaos Cosmos browser, and apply that to your fabric. Now, to achieve fall-off effect on your fabric, come to the fabric material parameters. On the diffuse map, by default you have the texture slot, but there is something we want to add to that. We want to add a fall-off, and as this is yellow, I do not want yellow, I want something orangey. So the first thing we want to do is to wrap it with color correction. So with color correction, you'll be able to change the hue, that is the color. I want to bring it backwards to something orangey. Let's leave it as this. Let us go back, and now we have something orangey. Then let's go again to our texture slot and right click again. We want to wrap it again with a fall off effect. So let's just click on fall off, and by default it brings the color correction into the color A. Now the fall off has 2 layers, that is color A and color B mixed together in the fall off type. Here you can select the fall off type that you want, but I strongly recommend that you use perpendicular parallel for our fabric material. So as you can see, here we see the fall off effect around our material already, but the white fall off effect is just solid white, which we do not want. So we want a lighter shade of our original material that we had here. So we'll come to this. Now we have the color correction. Just let's pick everything and copy. Then we want to paste as a copy, not an instance, because we want to be able to independently change the settings of this, and we want to make it brighter than this. So once that is pasted as a copy, now we have the same texture, and that's the reason why the fall off disappears. So we want to come here now and come to the lightness mode and change this to gain gamma lift. On the gain, change to 2. On the gamma, change to 2. And now we have the lighter shade. You can see the lighter shade of our fabric texture. And let's see our result. We can see the result we have the fall of fabric effect around our material, and that's how simple it is to create the fall of texture. Moving on a step further, we want to create a velvet effect on our fabric. Come to your V-Ray asset editor, the same fabric yellow that we just created a fall off on. Come to the advanced settings and come to the sheen. So in the sheen property here, we want to control the sheen color to be around here. Then we want to add a dirt texture to our sheen glossiness texture slot. So how do we do that? You can get your dirt texture on Google. Just type dirt texture maps. You get a lot of dirt texture map or imperfection maps. Come to color correction. Then on the color input, come to bitmap, and we want to come to the velvet dirt that I have. I'll link this in the description for you to follow along. Now let's select the velvet dirt and open. So once we have this, we want the darker area here to be pronounced. Let's come to the color correction under the lightness mode. Let's change to gamma, and let's bring this gamma downwards, and let's control the gain so that there is white and dark contrast. Increase this and reduce this, and we'll see the effect already. Now there is something we want to check. It is very important. We want to check that the effect or the dirt that we just added is well mapped onto our object. It is very important. If you are adding imperfections to your objects, and if you're adding dirt to your object, make sure you double check this and follow this correctly. Now you want to copy the dirt map, not the color correction. So you need to come into the color correction and trace where you have the dirt map. So this is where we have the dirt map itself, and you want to right click, come to the binding, and you switch from auto to custom. So once you switch from auto to custom, you have these checkers right on your object. Then you can right click and paste as instance, not as copy. So once you paste that as instance, then you are sure that this is mapping correctly. And one thing you want to avoid as well is repetition or tiling. So for instance, if I change this to 100 by 100, you have this tiling around. You want to avoid that. So make sure it's big enough to cover the object without tiling. So let's change this to 500 by 500, and that is how you check that out, guys. So you can, after you've checked that and you are okay with the size, just click on that and go back to auto. That should be fine. So let's go on and check the comparison between the fall off render and our velvet render effect. We have this rendering of our fabric with just fall off, with ordinary fall off, and let's see how it looks like now with the velvet effect. We can see how realistic and interesting it becomes now. It is very important to know how to play with all these effects to achieve more realism in our renders. Soft edges effect is very important in enhancing realism in your render. Let's come to our V-Ray asset editor, and we want to experiment that on our cabinet here. Once you've set your material, come to bump. Under bump, make sure you select local space bump, and if this bump map has already been used, maybe you've inserted some bump before, you can always come to this and add extra bump. But now, for the sake of this is just ordinary color. Come to bump map, change it to local space map. Then under the texture slot right above here, just click on that and come to the edges just below here. Once you come to the edges, set the width scene to 0.05 and make sure it is affecting the convex and concave. You want to select that and go back. Now you have that effect on our cabinet. Let us check the renders and compare when we have the soft edges on and when the soft edges is not on, and see the difference. After the rendering, we have this scene, and this is when everything is sharp. Like I said, this looks so straight, it looks so sharp, and it is rare in real life. Then let's swipe and see what happens after the soft edge effect has been applied. Can we see these soft edges around the corners, which makes the scene so interesting, much more interesting than we had like this? We can see the difference. So it is very important to note all these little effects. Those are the things that makes your render stand out. In 3D visualization, incorporating imperfections into materials is a critical technique for achieving realism. Perfectly clean, uniform surfaces are rare in the real world. Everything has some degree of wear, variation, or flaw. Let me show you how you can simply add imperfections to your materials. Let's come again to V-Ray Asset Editor, and in this case we want to illustrate our imperfection on faucet. Let's pick the material. The material is a plain brass. You can get imperfection map on Quixel Bridge. To add imperfections, come to your reflection glossiness. To add it, just come here. I have added a map from Quixel Bridge and I wrapped the map with color correction. Let me show you. On the Megascan library, that is the Quixel Bridge, whenever you download, automatically it stores it somewhere. You want to use the roughness map in your reflection glossiness. So select that and open. So once that is opened, you want to make sure that darker aspect of the map is pronounced. That is the reason why I've wrapped it with color correction. With color correction, you will be able to come to gamma and tune the gamma to 0.4, the gain to 1.3. Let me come a little bit lower, and with that done, you can come down here and copy the map, copy, then come to your bump, just right click and paste as an instance. Switch to advanced settings, then come under sheen. This is sheen here, and you want to just drop that map, right click, paste as an instance under the sheen glossiness. So set your sheen color to a little bit white like this, and make sure this is checked. Also for our reflection glossiness, make sure this is checked as well, so that you can see the effect. You can see it has started having the scratches already. But one more thing is the bump map. So from the material that I just downloaded from Pixelbridge, come to the normal map. You want to select the normal map, then make sure you go there and pick this normal map. Once that is selected, then set the amount to 0.45, and let's see what we have with and without the imperfection. So here we have the rendering of our faucet without imperfections, and we have the rendering as well with imperfection. Let's look closely. Now this makes the faucet look more interesting than just this. This is just to showcase how imperfections can really change the feel of your render. In recent development, V-Ray has given the opportunity to be able to edit the materials on the Chaos Cosmos object. This has given more flexibility to how we can enhance our scene greatly by editing the materials of the object that we've downloaded. An example is this scene. This is a component that I got from Chaos Cosmos. The name is Bananas 001. You can search it. So what I want to show you here is that you don't just have to use the default materials that has been assigned by V-Ray. Come to the V-Ray asset editor, come to the geometries, or you just pick the object within your scene. This is pot, and this is what we want to really edit. In the parameter section here, click on merge, come to the proxy mesh under the materials. They have been well named, so we want to change the banana bowl. This bowl is what we want to change, so we want to change it to something like an aluminum material. So we just come to the drop down and we slide until we get the material on our scene. So you get all the materials available for you on the scene. I want to just come to the aluminum one, and let's see the comparison between what we had before and what we now have now. After the rendering, we had this, and we were able to change it to aluminum just by selecting that from one of the materials that we've created within our scene. Another powerful effect that we can take advantage of is the contour. This effect creates line around the edges of your object, and it's very powerful for presentation. Let's check it out. Let's say you want to highlight a part of the whole presentation for more clarity. You can use these contour settings. Let's go right into the setting. Come to V-Ray asset editor. On each of the texture properties, you have the contour, so you can add contour to individual materials. I've separated the upper part of the building so that I will be able to use my contour on it alone, and select contour. By default, you have the lines around this material, and you want to set it. Just come down here. Here you have the line color, so you can set the color to whatever you want. You can leave it at white or black, or you can change it to green, red, whatever color you want. This is the width of the color. You can change it to 2, and it will get thicker and thicker. You can change it to 10. Then let's check our rendering and see what we have now. We have nothing here because we still have our materials overreading. Let's come below here and uncheck the can be overreading effect, and let's try again to see what we have. So this is what we have. You can see that it has highlighted this upper part of the building, and this can be useful for presentation. So you can just use even 0.5 and then it highlights that for you with a very soft line. You can see the soft edges, the dark lines, and we can change the color as well to, let's change it to white, and immediately we see it is now white is what we have. And this is another effect that you can take advantage of to add realism to your presentation. And guys, we've come to the end of the class. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thanks for watching.